Hey guys, Jay and I will be back for Two Guys vs. Cobra Kai next Saturday. Please enjoy our new podcast on The Matrix. Hey everybody, welcome to the Mr. Movie Show. I'm Steve, and we have a returning champion named Austin. Say what's up.
What's up, everyone?
So Austin, last time we talked, we did Ant-Man and Wasp video talking about Ant-Man 2, and that was about 2 years ago. So I bet you've been watching a lot.
It's been a while. Graduate school was 3 years, so
yeah,
it was well before that too.
Yeah. But according to like the YouTube thing, it says it's been 2 years.
Oh, really?
Since
how many views does it have now?
2.3 thousand.
It's not bad.
Well,
it's okay. It's a starting point for sure.
Jay and I's when we started doing some Cobra Kai stuff, we just hit 500 today.
Oh yeah.
500 views, and I'm pretty proud about myself.
Nice, absolutely.
And then we did a DC one and hit only 32,000. So.
I mean, that's just a few for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So now that you're back, I know you've been probably busy with school, but in your now your new free time, what have you been watching? What you've been reading?
Well, I have had a lot of extra time, fortunately, after school, so I've had a lot of recommendations for the show Dave on FX about Lil Dicky's life and career.
Okay. How do you like that show? Because I kind of saw it and I was a little bit kind of like not turned off, but just sort of like, okay, this looks okay. I'm not super.
It's not for the faint of heart for sure. It brought out the immature high school typical guy like penis joke kind of vibe for me, and I thought it was funny, but like he definitely toes the line of like appropriateness.
Does he try to be too much like Borat?
No, it's not like Borat, like kind of insincere, like doing jokes to piss people off.
Yeah,
that's just like how Lil Dicky is. Like he just raps about like super inconspicuous like objects and topics. So like. And yeah, it makes a lot of penis references.
Yeah,
so, again, if you're not into that, you might not like the show. But back in the day, I was very into that.
Yeah.
Like in high school.
Yeah, I can understand.
Super mature, obviously.
Yeah. I've been watching. I've been trying to get through Daredevil. Yeah. But I talked to my friend Terrence, and he said that Daredevil is going to be on Disney Plus. Like, all the Netflix stuff will be moved to Disney Plus. So I don't feel like I've got to now binge watch 3 seasons in like. Yeah. 40 15 days or something.
Hey, I mean, it's possible.
I know, but it's just like
you work full time too, but it might not be possible, but unless you stay up all night. But.
Yeah. I've been watching Jay and I watched the Ghostbusters Trilogy. We kind of nixed out of Ghostbusters the women version just because I wasn't a huge fan of it. Was the last time we kind of did on our pot, but I finished the Book of Boba Fett season 1. It's pretty good. I'm kind of like right now.
Did it kind of lead into the Mandalorian?
Well, it's sort of like Book of Boba Fett feel like they're like the thing about the Book of Boba Fett is that it sort of talked about how he got out of the Sarlacc pit. And kind of it combined that episode of at the end of like, have you been watching the book? Did you watch any of the Mandalorian stuff?
I watched all the Mandalorian and I started the Book of
Boba Fett. Okay, so you know how at the end of the Mandalorian where he shows up, and then if you watch the
Mark Hamill?
No, not Mark Hamill, but when Boba Fett shows up.
Oh, yeah.
He goes into the he goes into the area and like back to Jabba the Hutt's palace, and he goes and talks to the and it's sort of what it's sort of kind of branches off from what the Mandalorian is doing.
Right.
So,
it's all back in the days of Luke Skywalker.
It's after
it's like post the third movie, essentially, right?
The sixth movie. Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, Return of the Jedi.
The
third
of the original trilogy.
Yeah, well, yeah. I know. You got to be a little bit specific when you're talking on a podcast.
I know.
I've been watching that. I've been.
Tell me what you think about Daredevil.
I like it. It's.
Who plays Matt Murdock in this one?
Charlie Cox.
Yeah,
and
I think he does a really good job.
He does a really good job. I like Wilson Fisk, who's played by Vincent D'Onofrio. And if you don't know Vincent D'Onofrio, he played Edgar the Bug in Men in Black, and he's also in Law and Order: Criminal Intent. I talked about it a little bit, but I'm just about to finish season 1, and it's a pretty good show.
Yeah. I like it a lot.
But yeah, did you see, speaking of Marvel, did you see Spider-Man No Way Home?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Matt Murdock was in that as well.
Well, he was.
Spider-Man, so.
What was Jay and I had our opinions on No Way Home after if you check out our Webhead podcast. But just I want to get your kind of views on what was your views on it.
I love all Spider-Man movies. Like it's hard for me to pick a favorite between Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland. I think they all have a place in the Spider-Verse, if you will.
Yeah.
But I knew about the appearance of all three happening in the movie. I just didn't know
how it was going to happen.
How it would turn out.
And
you just never know.
And that's.
I think they.
Go ahead.
They played that up very well, and I thought the scene that they were all in turned out, or all the scenes that turned out, and went very well. So I was thoroughly impressed, and I just like Tom Holland a lot. And again, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. That's kind of what I've grown up on, and I enjoyed the movie a lot. And I don't know, yeah, it's weird. It's kind of a weird thing, now that the Avengers kind of Endgame, and all that jazz has occurred, and that they're still having timeline movies.
Well, yeah, but
it's kind of cool. I hope they continue it.
Well, and I liked how if you watch the Flash is coming out. It's more DC, but they're bringing back Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton as Batman. So I think because we are. I think.
How do you feel on the Batman front? How do you feel about the new one coming out?
Pattinson. I really think he gets a lot of flack for playing Edward, but I think he does. I think he brings something. He brought something to a know nothing character in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. He played Cedric Diggory.
Cedric Diggory. He's a great actor.
Yeah. And so
you can't deny that.
But I think he's gonna. I think it's Matt Reeves who directed Planet of the Apes, or Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War of the Planet. I think all the Planet of the Apes movies. So he kind of knows what I think he's doing. I like the tempo. I like how this Riddler is going to be more interesting. Don't get me wrong, Jim Carrey will always have a place in my heart, but Joe Schumacher's Batman really wasn't, the Batman Forever was a little bit too cartoonish. But I think, a guy I listened to did a podcast, I listened to that inspired me to do a podcast, said Batman Forever is basically what would happen if Gotham legalized gambling.
That's hilarious. That's actually very, very accurate.
But I think he'll do all right. I'm kind of interested in seeing how they'll do Catwoman. I like Andy Serkis is going to do Alfred. I'm kind of interested in kind of seeing how they'll bring that to life.
You mean Gollum?
Yeah, Gollum, exactly. And but yeah, I think I'm kind of game for it. I'm really kind of game for it. And then of course you got.
I think it will be interesting. I hope people don't write it off before it comes out, just because it has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
The cast, I mean, not bad. Like, again, it's questionable, but it could be a great movie. And I hope people give it a chance. I just enjoy comic book movies in general.
Right.
So I will definitely see it.
And I think it'll and if you look at speaking of Daredevil, Colin Farrell played Bullseye in the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people kind of, if you watch the Ben Affleck movie, the Daredevil film, the theatrical cut,
right,
everybody kind of wrote that off as a really shitty movie.
Who plays Elektra in that movie?
Jennifer Gardner.
That's what I thought. I was like, it's such a random, like, I'm just, she's the one that does the Capital One commercials, right?
Yeah.
I just can't, like, I mean, again, she's an actor, so I'm sure she has a wide range of acting skills, but, like, just doesn't seem like a good fit for, a super woman, like a superhero that's a woman. I don't know, to me, again, it worked for her, and congrats for her to be able to play that role. But just like looking back now, it just seems like an interesting role.
Well, and I, the biggest problem I have, I know you probably don't watch that since you've been busy studying and everything, but the biggest problem I have with a lot of like these streaming services, mm-hmm. and I understand why they do it, is because they want to get people's eyeballs on it. But it's just like there's so much content out there, and it's like a gold mine, but it's just like it's kind of overwhelming.
Bro, I feel you. Like I've been trying to, like, since school has been done, I've been trying to decide what I want to watch.
Yeah.
There's too much. Like, I want to watch it all.
Well,
I mean, decide on what to settle on.
Well, and it's just like, and like, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is I at least make watching TV a job. Right. I mean, and that's kind of, and that's the same problem I have. Is just like, well, what do you want to cover on this episode? What do you want to cover on this episode? What do you want to?
Dude, it gets convoluted for sure. There's so much content to take in, and then there's a lot of content to put out on from, like, what do you think about stuff, and that's the beautiful thing about podcasts, and that's why, like, it's such a huge part of, like, social media right now. Like, podcasts are just popping off right now.
Well,
so, it's cool. Like, you just never know what you're gonna run into, and like when you come across like a voice or like someone that you like value their opinion on something.
I started listening to. Oh, go ahead. I started listening. The guys that inspired me, I started listening to them in like 2012, and just because I was looking for a movie pod. I was like, I'll try this thing called podcasting. Found this movie podcast called the B Movies Podcast, and they kind of I listened to them through like 800 something episodes, or like 300 something episodes of them. They split another podcast and called it Canceled Too Soon, where they review television series that lasted one season or less. And then the B Movies Podcast went. The website they were working for decided not to keep it, so they went to another website, and the Schmozno, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. It's movie trivia, but it's with the tropes of wrestling. It's on YouTube.
Gotcha.
I've watched, and it's like they ask kind of like, movie trivia questions, like actual, like questions like, how many times was Ferris Bueller out? And he says, missing school. Yeah. And it's 9 times, something like, and it's just interesting. And I listen to them. I listen to 2 Australians talk about comic book movies. So, I mean, like, I kind of pick who I want to listen to and that kind of thing. So.
Oh yeah. It's just like all the streaming services. There's so much content. Like, you can look up literally like a story about anything in the world nowadays, and there'll be a podcast about it.
Right, so and here we are. We're doing a podcast ourselves. So, bam. Exactly. So I saw. Let's see. I've been kind of watching. I actually wanted to do a solo. Actually, Austin, I was going to do a solo podcast just to kind of for practice reasons and do it on like teen TV shows. Because we did the 10 Things I Hate About You, and I've got like the One Tree Hill and the OC, and these shows that kind of came out right when I was in high school. I was going to talk about them, but the biggest problem I have with doing a solo podcast is just structure. But but we'll kind of but I guess what else have you been playing any video games or anything?
That's a source of contention in our household. I generally love video games, and I have an old Xbox One, and it just seems to like not really keep up with like most of the systems that are out there, like the new Xbox, which is what I like to get. But I've been inconsistent in my gaming throughout my schooling process. So
I mean, I know.
I like almost don't want to even reopen that can of worms. Yeah. Because that's just another thing to take my time that I don't have much to give out.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. I was just kind of, kind of going to video games and stuff like that. Just
I did like Halo Infinite game.
Okay. Speaking of Halo Infinite, have you seen the trailer for Paramount Plus Halo movie or TV series?
I was sorely disappointed when I heard Peter Jackson was producing a Halo movie. At one point, I was like, hell yeah, Lord of the Rings was a great franchise, and I'm sure he could do well with Halo. And so I'm really hoping that Paramount doesn't screw it up too badly, because like I really enjoy Halo, and honestly, like the difference between like the initial like Bungie Halo games and then like the new ones that have come out since is definitely. I mean, it just hit different back in the day too, but I'm just hoping that the show does the games justice for sure.
Yeah.
We'll see. There's also a Lord of the Rings
show coming out. Amazon's doing it. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting. They released a trailer for it, I think Super Bowl Sunday. Yeah. And I thought I saw it and I was like, I'll take a whack at it.
So it kind of bodes well. It like kind of fits in perfectly that I'm reading the books now, because I started with The Hobbit, and I actually just watched all the newer Hobbit.
How'd you like it? Because I've watched 1 and 2, but I have never gotten through the Battle of the Armor.
It does follow the book, kind of. I mean, again, even the Lord of the Rings movies don't like follow it. There's too much detail to like be able to show. But they added just a few too many like love stories, and added a few like details that I didn't really like. I mean, theatrically helped, but like were very out there. But I don't know, they're not bad. Right. I enjoyed watching them. I enjoy like just that whole lore of the Lord of the Rings. So it was cool. And like honestly, some of the things I've been reading in Lord of the Rings, there were scenes in the Hobbit movies that are from Lord of the Rings.
Like the whole. I've heard people say that like. I think the Lord of the Rings was, and I think the thing is a lot of people were looking at what's his name, Guillermo del Toro, the director of Blade 2 and Pan's Labyrinth. He was gonna do the Hobbits, and then I think like back in 2004, like they were. And then I think Peter Jackson they were like, well, Peter Jackson did a really good job, so we're going to. Why would you get?
There's a lot of like co-producers on The Hobbit, and I think like since Peter Jackson was on like the production team for The Hobbit, like I think he went back and like was adding some of the things that he probably meant to put in the Lord of the Rings. Because I swear, like some of the scenes from the Hobbit movies are from like direct like lines from the book of the Lord of the Rings, like. And it's kind of interesting how that worked out, but yeah, the books are great, and it's just like Harry Potter. There's too much detail in the books. Well, like theatrically,
the number. Go ahead.
They have to dramatize it a bit. Like I mean, there's not much love stories in the book of Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. And,
right.
I mean, again, like that's just theatrical dramatization. Right. So. You have to expect that.
Well, I liked the biggest thing that pissed me off about Harry Potter, the movies, was that I felt like I can kind of understand when you've got 7, with like book 4, they could have split that into 2 movies, or at least they could have.
Book 4 is a big book too.
But yeah, I mean, I look at it as if they would have done it all the way to like Harry's name is in the Goblet of Fire from like the beginning of the movie to to.
I wish they would have done more with the Quidditch World Cup.
Yes, that's exactly what I was like. The Velas, you don't if you like watch the movie and then read the book and go like, oh, she's a Vela. What's a Vela?
Right.
The Omnioculars. And that was my biggest problem. But then like 7th, I actually finished the book and went and saw the part 2, and I was furious. Just because the final battle was this epic thing in the book, and in the movie it was like, all right, Harry, let's fight. And you're just like, wait, we waited 10 damn years for this movie to like finish up, and all you do is have a stick fight.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, and the movie's almost done to do like The Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings justice. Like, I mean, they're great movies, and I think Harry Potter is obviously a great series of movies.
Right. Well, and I think
the books are so good too. And
I think
so much more detail oriented. So.
Well, and I think the other problem too is you kind of have the same thing with directors. Did you ever see Bumblebee?
No, I think I did.
Okay, it was the one with John Cena and but you watch all the Transformers movies and you can see Michael Bay's fingerprints all over that movie.
Right.
And then you look at Bumblebee and you're watching it and going like, he did a good job with it.
Right.
That kind of thing. But yeah, so I've been kind of like, that's kind of the thing. Let's get into what we were going to discuss. As you know, if you've watched our Ant-Man, at the end of our Ant-Man and Wasp video 5 years ago, we talked about doing Matrix versus Fight Club for their 20th anniversary. Well,
did we like literally say at the end that we're like, be on the lookout?
Yes, we said something like, "What are we gonna do?" I think you said, "What are we gonna do next, Steve?"
Cliffhanger.
So if you guys were waiting, we're probably can't remember that much that happened in Fight Club. So, but they did another Matrix movie. Matrix 4, Matrix Resurrection.
Oh, yes.
So, let's talk about, you want to just kind of go through the first 3 Matrixes and talk about that?
Sure.
All right. So, Austin, when did you watch The Matrix the first time?
Good Lord. I want to say it was like middle or high. I forget when it came out, really, honestly.
Well, it came out in 99.
Right, so like I think I would have watched it initially maybe in late middle school or like early high school, and I think I watched it with my dad, like the first one.
Yeah.
Because it was just like...
Did it blow your mind?
Very different like movie, that like kind of questions reality and existence and all that jazz. So like I honestly, it was either with my dad or like just with my friends. It was definitely in early high school or like
I remember like The Matrix was sort of that movie that I guess your older sibling, like if you had older siblings, they were into that movie, and it was sort of that somewhat. I was 11 when it came out, so there was that sort of taboo sense of watching it. I mean, which you watch it now and you're not like, it's not like, I mean, there's like not that, it's not that sexy or anything.
It's not racy, definitely compared to like, I mean, it has like some now the Matrix Revolutions, like, whew, that's like a pretty intense sex scene. But
I mean, they were like,
the first and second one didn't have that much like raciness, like or like sex appeal necessarily.
It was cool.
It did kind of. I mean, they're all like in leather spandex and whatnot, but it wasn't one that my parents were like, "You cannot watch this." Absolutely, or whatever.
Well,
I'm just saying, I don't think I even watched it when it came out, just because I was too young, like in general. Like my parents wouldn't let me see any movie that was rated R back then.
Yeah.
So it was dumb, but I mean, like, so I saw it after it come out, but then I was like, oh shit, this is like a great movie.
Yeah. So, well, when, for me, it was that kind of thing the big kids are watching. I mean, that was the thing. And then.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those kind of movies, for sure.
And then I think, once I kind of watched it the first time, it kind of blew my mind kind of the same way Fight Club did. When you find out that, okay, we're going to spoil Fight Club if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
It's 23 years old. So, when you find out that Edward Norton is really Tyler Durden, but going back to...
That's one of the best, like plot reveals.
Yes, and the way it's done.
Yeah.
The way it's done, where people go like, but you kind of realize but if you watch it again, I think like Honest Trailers did an Honest Trailer for Fight Club, and they said, that's pretty much, if you watch it, you can tell where he says, you have the same briefcase as I do, and that kind of stuff. But with
it's like first time through movies are great. Like I love rewatching movies because again, like even with Fight Club, like watching it the first time and then like going back and realizing like what you're watching the next time you watch it is like that's kind of mind blowing in itself.
Right.
Like, when you're like, wow, how did I miss all this detail? Because like you're actually looking for it, I guess, the second time, but it is still like the initial like shock factor of that movie was huge. But also with The Matrix, like I mean, the first one, like when the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is just a badass movie, like for sure. But then you don't realize how like woke these movies are. They're like totally like anti-government, like I mean, like totally futuristic in a sense that like wouldn't be surprised if this actually happened, like in the future with the way. Technology in the
if you watched The Matrix Resurrection, there's that scene. Have you seen it? Resurrection.
No, okay. So don't spoil it.
Well, in the trailer, there's a scene where he's sitting in the he's in an elevator and everybody's looking at their phones, and he looks up and it's like a mirror ceiling, and it's commentary.
Right.
But and I think I guess this is our video. I guess this is our podcast on the. Do you want to talk about Matrix or just the Fight Club, or do you want to talk about both? Or
just let's definitely stick to Matrix, but like I mean, we can like talk about how Fight Club kind of parallels with it. Definitely. Or like,
well, I think there's
that like are relevant.
Well, I think if you look at some, I think in '99 there was something about the workaholic character.
Right.
If you look at something like Office Space, people who hate their jobs. You look at American Beauty, about a guy who pretty much is, just says screw it and just kind of does what he wants,
Right.
And if you look at, but with with Fight Club and The Matrix, I'm going to kind of talk, Fight Club, there's sort of like he's, he can't sleep. He's living in a sort of like this, kind of this sort of trying to get out of his own personal,
Right. He's just like a normal person. He has this life outside of work that he cares about way more, and he's like really good at. He's a hacker, like.
Oh, Matrix.
Yeah, and like same. I mean, I guess with Fight Club too, but like I mean, like Neo, or Mr. Anderson, he's like a normal guy who has a shitty job also that he hates and like gets fired from essentially, like in the first movie. So I mean, I feel like they played on that, especially like with Y2K coming up, like when it came out.
Yeah. Like
it's crazy how like they kind of almost like predicted where they think the internet's going, and like honestly they're not on a weirdly off trajectory at all.
There was
machines running the world, like that's where we're headed towards essentially.
Yeah, well there was a line in The Social Network where he says, we lived in cities, we lived in town, we lived on farms, we lived in towns, we lived in cities, now we're living on the internet.
Right.
And that's kind of like, you're like going, holy shit, that's probably right.
Dude, and now, like, the metaverse is out. And,
Yeah.
like, dude, I mean, we're legitimately, like, heading that way. And it's wild to think about, but, like, I mean, there's going to be AI soon enough, and, like, things are, like, robots controlling businesses and shit. It's going to be weird.
Yeah. Anyway, back to The Matrix. What was your thoughts on Keanu Reeves as Neo? Like, for me, I didn't know who Keanu Reeves was. I kind of knew him a little bit from Speed, the movie, and I didn't know him that well from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. I don't know if you watched.
Dude, so this is the thing. All these movies came out when I was, like, young, and, like, I didn't really care.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'd heard of them, and, like, I'd heard of Keanu Reeves potentially. Like, I don't even think I knew who he was before The Matrix. And then after I saw that, like, I think I saw Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure after The Matrix.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's, like, Neo. Like, I started making associations.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like,
how, like, iconic of an actor.
It's kind of like when you call
Keanu Reeves is. Like,
well, you know, when Keanu Reeves, he kind of like, and I've heard he's like one of the most coolest guys in person. Like,
oh, yeah, I've heard he's, like, such a great dude. And, like,
he'll pose for pictures and
movies,
stuff like
so
that.
many action movies, you would think he'd be like this just badass, like stay away from me kind of loner dude. But again, I don't know him personally at all, so like, it's hard to make judgment on like what do you think an actor is like in real life when you see them play so many different roles. And, I mean, in Keanu's case, like he plays almost like kind of the same role in John Wick. Like he's just like a badass dude.
Oh god, we should talk about John Wick, but we're focused on The Matrix. We got I was listening I was listening to a podcast, The Weekly Planet, where they were talking about Keanu or Keanu. Like when they went through his like filmography. But like I guess do you want to kind of just focus mostly on The Matrix, or
for sure. Let's try to stay with that topic for sure. But again, like I think like the red versus blue pill scene's super iconic. Like there's so many like. When you watch it first time through, you don't realize it, but then when you see it again, you're like, oh man, these are like such cool scenes. And then like their use of their camera angles and like. Using multiple cameras and like the circular like setup for the all the slow mo scenes with like their movements in the Matrix or whatever, and fighting the agents. I thought that all was so cool.
Well, and I mean like for me, I mean I saw it when I kind of knew about it when I was 11, and when I watched it, it was like. It was just like I can kind of see how cool. Like now, I mean, I think it's hard for me to like go. Well, it really, you kind of don't realize how revolutionary it was visually. Like
I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I mean, I can't tell you what I thought about it. Like honestly, from what the first time my brain encountered it, but like going back and like comparing it, like I mean, it definitely was like. High-tech stuff they were doing back then, which comparatively now, like with CGI and stuff. Like,
and you're kind of watching. Like, exactly.
Get creative on the like production front and like the cinematography crew. Like, I mean, I just can't imagine putting that whole movie together.
And I like, what I like about it too is, I liked how it was. I liked Lawrence Fishburne's Morpheus. Where I was kind of like, he kind of talks really slow. Like, you see him in, like, John Wick Chapter 2, another Keanu Reeves movie, where he doesn't talk slow, but he talks a lot softer in the Matrix versus when he's talking he's a lot more, he's like, talks a lot louder, he's a little bit more, John Wick.
Right. Well, he has a little more expression. Morpheus character.
Morpheus is very calm, and he says, "What is like when he goes, to the, when he goes to the, he takes the pill.
Right.
You know, and there is that kind of moment where he's like, if you take the blue pill, you'll end up in Wonderland.
Right.
If you take the red pill, you wake up and just realize that, you know, your world is just, and I kind of, you know, and I kind of feel like there is that sense of, you know, meaning in the world. But it was kind of interesting. I was watching a video on YouTube. A guy named Nostalgia Critic did a review, and how he said he hated the Matrix.
Oh, really?
Because he said, like, he says it was, he said they were dumb. According to his on his review, he said he kind of saw them as dumb movies, and that a lot of other, like, Japanese anime and stuff like that already was covering that before the, and he, according in his personal view, he
Right.
said that they did it better. The Japanese versions did it better than the Matrix. And then I kind of, when I watched the fourth one, I was like, I felt like kind of like they kind of got a little bit too up in their, you know, they kind of got a little bit too, like, what is real? And I'm like going, okay, because, like, my biggest thing with a lot of movies, 1, 2, 3 is fine with me. 4 or 5,
Right.
you better show something. You better bring your A game.
Right.
Because unless you're doing, like, you know, the cinematic universe stuff works okay because it's always like connecting to the next one. But for me, the other problem I have is that with the connecting it to the cinematic universe, you're always like looking ahead, but you're never enjoying the path.
Right.
Sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I feel you. And especially, like, I mean, yeah, even that's like kind of how a lot of Star Wars fans feel, I'm sure. Like, I mean, it's really hard to hit the nail on the head on newer trilogies, or
Yeah.
like even just like rebooting a new movie from a trilogy, kind of like The Matrix does.
Yeah.
It's, like, you're gonna, I mean, I think a lot, like, from, again, I need to watch it, the fourth installment, but I heard that, like, the original, like, the people who like the original trilogy, like, really only liked the parts that were paying homage to that, but, like, as a whole didn't enjoy it that much.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it would be a movie I would be interested in watching.
You know, when you watch it, because I saw it with Jay, we watched it, and it was sort of like, the thing about it was like the whole idea. You want me just to give you a quick plot synopsis? Yeah. So basically, what happens is he's been we meet Neo, or he's now back to Tom Anderson, and he's basically like he's working as a video game designer, and they're working on a video game called The Matrix.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, like I said, like when I was watching it, I was like going, okay, so you guys are gonna be really meta and try to be kind of, you know, and so it was like he meets Carrie Ann Moss, Trinity, but Trinity is sort of like has no idea, like it's almost like as if he's been in a coma with the whole Matrix movies, and he's been out of it. And like that was my kind of thing, where I was just like, it just kind of was like, it tried too hard to be, it tried too hard to be interesting, but couldn't really, you know, I'll probably get it on Blu-ray just to watch them all three, all four back to back, just to, because like I think the other thing too is when you, I always kind of feel like there's a difference between watching a movie when you go and you watch a sequel, and you watch the sequel be the sequel. Like, you know, you don't watch the first one, or you don't watch the third one, you just watch, like, Terminator 2. Right. Terminator 2 is one of those films that just stands on its own. You know, can't stand on its own. You can watch, you know, and the third one says, like, you know, all that fate and, you know, fate is only what you make for itself kind of thing. And in the third one, they're like saying, well, we're going to throw that out of the door, and it's just say, screw it, your fate isn't really, you know, what you guys did is you just prevented, you know.
Right, but I do like how the trilogy, like, you
with Matrix or the Terminator?
But I'm sorry, the Matrix.
Yeah.
Like, but they the timeline storyline goes along with each movie, and it like makes more sense if you watch them in order for the first 30, for sure.
Yeah, well,
and again, like Matrix Reloaded is like, and even the Revolutions are just like so much. I don't know that the first one by itself, I mean, is just classic.
Right,
and like, the next two just go into the war with machines essentially.
Yeah.
And a lot of like detail about that, which I kind of got lost in.
Right.
But they still do the badass fighting scenes, and like it's cool. But like I mean, it's hard to beat the first original Matrix.
Well, yeah, the original one, I think, and it works because it doesn't like it was sort of like I like Hugo Weaving as Mr. Smith. And I like the whole like putting this, the whole scene where he's like talking to when Mr. Smith's got him, or Agent Smith, not Mr. Smith. Agent Smith's got him and says, he puts the little like worm thing in his belly button, why can't you make a phone call if you can't speak, and kind of like how we're, as an audience member, we're looking through the eyes of Neo for the first Matrix, and then the second Matrix, it's like, here's what's going on in Zion after the events of the first one.
Right. Exactly, and I mean, it's like, it's there's a lot of detail that we don't really need to go into, but it's crazy. Like when he in Revolutions gets outside of like the Matrix into the machine world, essentially.
Right, and
it's like it all kind of comes together then, and you're like, whoa, that's like, I mean, it's such a weird concept to like, and especially again when I was young and watching it the first time. Like, I didn't even fully grasp that, like, the Matrix was, like, another world they went to, and, like, real life was, like, the machine world.
Right. Well, and I like, and, there was that scene in the second one, in Reloaded, where he's, like, where he talks to the priest, or, like, the high council guy. Uh-huh. He says, I can't sleep. And he says, there are machines that are trying to kill us, there are machines that are trying to rescue us, and there are machines that keep us healthy,
right?
And it was that kind of thing where I was like watching it, going, okay, so I mean, I can understand like how they're still, and I feel like we kind of when he, but what was what was your thoughts on just sort of the visualization, the visual, like, I guess we kind of talked about the story, but what about, how'd you feel about like that, the scene when they're on the rooftop and
he like dodges the
bullets? Yeah, was that just something that you were just like, oh my god, that's so cool looking?
Oh dude, yeah, first time I ever saw it. I mean, there's not many movies that compare to like that,
and it's
back then.
And the other thing too is like, it is even coined a term, matrixing.
Right. Oh yeah, like when I would try to replicate it like in the pool and all that. I thought it was so cool, and like the fact that CGI wasn't what it was back then, like the fact that they made those scenes look so good, and like it was pretty mind blowing for me. And I love the soundtrack too, like
the Rage of the Machine.
Come on, Rage Against the Machine, dude. It's like that. That like really started my like. I don't know. I just love that kind of music.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I just think it's hard to think about a movie that can like compare,
right,
like just visually to what The Matrix did with the actors and like just the action and like. I mean, it's kind of iconic, and like I don't know, like I mean, I guess if any other movie came out, I haven't even seen John Wick, which is unfortunate. I need to watch those. Do they do slow motion like scenes?
John Wick. So what? I guess since we're gonna go on this tandem, John Wick. For
Well, I'm
me,
just talking about visually.
visually, it's very
you're not
fast.
too deep in,
It's very fast. Like it's very fast in its sort of action. Like it's, it's more of like it's not like, and if you look at Bourne, like, the Bourne Identity, I'm gonna kind of jump into the Bourne Identity. Bourne Identity takes the like actual fighting realistically. And John Wick, I feel like it takes it realistically, but kind of with a little twist on it.
Right.
Yeah, but what I liked about, you kind of like this, just the fighting and just the, the like the action. But when we look at, so when we look at sort of the, like do you want to kind of talk about Reloaded or kind of finish on Matrix?
Like, we can kind of group those two together. Like, again, we've almost gone into them enough. Like, they just kind of hit different for sure than the
first one. Yeah, because the first, and I feel like the first one, I look at it, if I looked at it as the director of the first Matrix, I think that's the reason why a lot of people say the sequels weren't as good. And you can have your own opinion, but like from what the critics say, the reasons why, like the second two, which I actually kind of liked them all,
right.
But I feel like the problem is when you have lightning in the bottle with something like the Matrix and you try to repeat that, it might not taste as great, which could work okay. But just like, I look at the Matrix as sort, with, like when you watch something like Matrix 2, I like how it was sort of like, I like the best scene in that film. Well, I like the twins.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. And the car chase.
The car chase, that's where I want to get into. Yeah. And on the motor, and like you had Trinity on the motorcycle bike.
That was a pretty badass scene for sure.
Yeah.
But so what were you saying about it? Like,
well, like I like just the visuals of that. Like it was sort of like so cool just to, and I mean, when it came out, I was 15. Yeah. So I was kind of in that right, being 11 in 99, it was sort of like, I was sort of like intrigued. But once the third one came out, the second and third one came out, I was like, oh my gosh, I was a huge, my cousin was a Matrix fan, and I kind of became a Matrix fan. Now, I just, I'm kind of in the same way as when like with the Matrix, it's like I try not to listen. I don't really go to the film and want to get philosophized that much.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, these are very woke movies we're talking about here, for sure.
But
I you think about the message in the broad sense, but like again, also at bare minimum, they're just visually stunning.
And that's kind of what I really like to talk about. Is just like I don't really want to get into the whole, I like the philosophy. The philosophy's fine, but like I just, I always like to get, what was your reaction seeing it?
I was called to revolt against the government after I saw it.
No.
I'm kidding. No, I typically back then I just wanted to be entertained in a movie, and The Matrix is what I wanted. Essentially, just action, guns, like car scenes. It was essentially like Fast and the Furious before that even came out. Like.
Yeah, well, and I think it did well, and I think the reason why the second and third one didn't do as well is because it had such to live up to that.
Oh, dude! I mean, the first one had it all. Like, it had a great storyline. It like was just visually like great for 1999, and it had so much just like so many iconic things happening like that they didn't even probably predict
right.
what's going to happen. Like, or they didn't predict it would be taken that way. So yeah, it's definitely hard. Like, those are almost like comparing the like original trilogy of Star Wars to even the first three. You know.
Yeah.
It is like the difference between like the first Matrix movie, the second, like Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah, Reload. And I feel like, and that was the thing, and like Matrix Reloaded, I like the Merovingi, the French guy. This French dude, he's like, I like to kiss in French, kumisada, all this kind of stuff. And I liked kind of how, and then of course, I liked how when he fights he's in the room with the when he's in the room with like he's got all the like the weapons in the second one, and it's like the staircase, and they're like running. That stuff visually was interesting.
Yeah, well, they had a lot more like CGI to play with too at that point, and you can like tell, you can kind of definitely tell that like they did more CGI in the second one, which I could definitely see like people who like pay really close attention to that kind of detail. Like again, I wasn't like, I still thought it was a great movie.
Right.
It was entertaining, but like the cinematography in the first one, just like knowing what they had to work with, it just makes it even more like incredible.
Right. And I liked I liked the twins. And
having people can like be invisible and like go through things, that is a tough like CGI kind of cinematography like visualization to hit on the head, and they did a great job with it in the second one. But I enjoyed those characters as well, and like there's a lot more. There's a few other like kind of quirky characters like that in that whole room with the French dude and.
And there's the French, the Merovingi's wife, who's like
who's like literally wanting to essentially help
Neo, and like she feels like she's a prisoner.
Yeah, was it that movie that she made him kiss her in front of what's her name?
Yeah, I think it was the second one.
It may have been the third, but like, I'm pretty sure it was the second one where like they're all in the bathroom and she like forces him to make out with her in front of
kiss her like you're kissing me or something, or kiss me like you want to kiss her.
Yeah.
And I liked her. I like the Merovingi. I just like the way he curses. He's like kumasade, all these French, and I have no idea that if it's like French accent is actually if he's actually cursing in French, or if he's just because I guess, do you want to I saw the fourth one, and he shows up.
Oh, really?
With a beard.
Oh, shoot.
So,
that's cool. I mean, again, like any like kind of homage or like throwback to the original ones, like I think goes a long way for the fans who don't like oppose kind of change and like new beginnings in this sense, like with the fourth movie. Yeah. But like, I'm always open to like seeing where they might go with it. Again, you can ruin it. You can ruin a movie for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like kind of tarnish would you say it like kind of tarnished the original three at all?
Well, the thing about the fourth one was like, I think they gave it. I would have liked to have watched them back to back. I told this to Jay when I watched it. I would like to watch them back to back just to get kind of I'll buy it on Blu-ray when it comes out on Blu-ray, and like watch the Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Resurrection, Revolution, Resurrect, and then Resurrect. And just kind of see, because like I think when you watch, it's kind of like when you watch, I think that way they'll be like, I kind of saw there were some callbacks here to in the fourth one, from the first three to the fourth one. I mean, it was kind of interesting. I was watching honest trailers on the Matrix movies. They did the whole the thing, and they said, I don't know if you've watched Dragon Ball Z Were you ever a fan of that show at all?
I watched it.
Okay, so they kind of said like the Matrix movies, the final battle in 3 in Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
When they have a fight, there's like they just ripped that off of Dragon Ball Z where they have a fight.
Dude, it is kind of bullshit. Like these machines are like terrible soldiers. Like they could have easily decimated Zion.
Yeah.
But they're just all floating around in circular patterns, letting these like humans just destroy them.
Well, and like the fight between
giving the plenty of time to go be the Jesus hack that needed to destroy the machines.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I like what I liked about the final. I thought the final battle was pretty cool, with where he's like walking on the street and it's raining and he's like, it ends tonight, and that kind of had that same feeling with Agent and Hugo Weaving, and that's the one thing that I kind of missed about Resurrection was there was no Hugo Weaving.
There were agents, but there wasn't Hugo?
Hugo doesn't show up.
Oh, yeah, that's like...
Sorry, I mean, I didn't want to ruin it for you, but...
No, it's okay. That like, kind of irks me just knowing that.
Yeah. But...
I mean, it's okay. Like, I'm sure, again, I will still see this movie, and I'll probably enjoy it, even if I don't enjoy it as much as the original one, so... But yeah, like, we don't even really need to go into Revolution all that much. It was just a bunch of bureaucracy, like, which captain was going to man the ship, sort of. Like, you thought it was better. And, like, and then Neo does exactly what you expect him to do and saves the day.
Well, and I like, well,
like, that's kind of what pissed me off about the third one, is, like, too straightforward. Like, it was predictable.
Yeah. Well, and, like...
But it was good.
Yeah.
Like,
I can see that. I mean, I like the... the thing that I kind of when I watched, when I kind of think about it, when you have the yin and yang of the architect and the oracle, and the oracle is like everything. So and like there's that line in the third one, or like, well she's like she's the good part, and he says, well as you can see, you're part of, but I think the problem with the Matrix is they try to make something that seems so easy to say, like easy to like explain. I am the enemy, blah 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 blah. They just try to like make words, and I mean that's okay. I mean like that's okay, but like I think when I'm trying to explain it for a podcast, I'm like going, they said just some like BS that I just remember them.
Yeah, exactly. So the second and third movie definitely felt like less sincere, if you can say that.
Yeah.
I guess, in a way, definitely the third one. Like it felt like they just wanted to wrap it up essentially.
Yeah, and then
But again, like I don't know how one could even come about making this movie with the amount of like graphical and like CGI content that was needed to make the movie. Like that's a feat in itself. But and I think that like honestly, would you say that like budget and like ability of like post production and like being able to make these scenes like in general, like I mean the fight at Zion would not be like I don't know where the hell you'd start to even try to make that scene. So like. Do you think that like kind of makes some of these movies nowadays?
Well,
like, even,
if you give,
I don't know. Like,
I think like
it's hard for a director to put his vision into what a movie should be.
Right.
Because I mean, like he's trying to put all these pieces together.
Well,
like CGI and like storyline and like making it actually viable to like make a movie. And that kind of blows my mind.
Well, and like if you look at some, some directors, like you look at James Gunn, or not James Gunn, but if you look at somebody like Michael Bay, for instance,
right?
You give Michael Bay, you give him like a 40 million, you give him something like easy, like I don't know how much the budget it was for the first Bad Boys, but you look at that and I could not tell you that was a Michael Bay movie. I watch Armageddon, Transformers 1 through 4 or 5, and I watch, Pain and Gain. I know he's an auteur, and you can tell that's a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And you look at kind of like with the Matrix, and you look at the Wazowski, Mike Wazowski, Wachowski sisters, I think is what they're called now. They pretty much like, you watch they do, something like The Matrix, and then you look at something like, but I've heard Speed Racer was pretty good.
Right.
Like it wasn't as like philosophical or anything like that. But what would you give? What was your thoughts on like, as now or looking at the trilogy, like what is your expectation since you haven't seen the fourth one?
Right.
What is your, and even though I've kind of given you a little bit of my thoughts, what are your expectations of 4 versus 1, 2, and 3?
Again, I've seen the trailer and it looks interesting for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it when I was like going, what the,
I just like, again, after watching the original trilogy, I just don't know what direction they're going to take it.
Right.
Like, because it can go anywhere. And like, I'm interested in it. Like, it piques my interest to want to know which way they take it. But like, hopefully, I mean, again, who's to say like my direction of where I would want it to go is any better than anyone else's? But like, I just have a like kind of a. I don't actually. I want to say I have like a direction that I would want them to take it in, and I have no freaking clue.
Right.
So I want to know what they do with it,
Yeah.
And I'm going in with an expectation that it probably won't be as good as the original. Do you feel like my barometer?
Do you feel like The Matrix kind of had lightning in a bottle, and just?
Oh yeah, and like definitely with the first one, especially.
Yeah.
Like that they had like that there was not. I mean, looking back, I don't think there's many movies that compare.
Yeah.
To The Matrix back then,
Yeah. Well.
Again, it's like, and then also like looking back as being a young kid looking at The Matrix, like it was like just crazy looking and like just a cool badass film. But now, like watching it nowadays, it's like very woke and like it definitely has some like interesting themes for sure.
Okay. So I guess we've been talking for about an hour.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, hold on. Before we go, since we were video game fans, let's end with the video game Enter the Matrix. Did you ever play that?
Oh yeah, I started it and I tried to play as much as I could. It just like I felt like it was never gonna end to me.
Well,
it was a fun game. Like it was fun to be Neo and like go into the Matrix mode and like.
Who did you play as? Did you play as Ghost or as Niobe?
Oh Lord, I don't remember.
I played it and I just thought it was cool just because when you had focus mode where you could do all the Matrix, the bullets and stuff like that. And then I liked, I got through some of the levels were okay. Like you never really, you kind of spent most of the time in Neo, in the Matrix, and it was just kind of and that kind of thing. And then I remember that they had specific Powerade for the Matrix. It was like Powerade. I mean, I was like a certain flavor Powerade that just had the Matrix thing, kind of logo and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, for me, I feel like the first one. I mean, I watch it now, and I kind of I kind of want to watch it again just to get kind of what is, it's just, it feels like, the Matrix kind of, I don't really want to get into it as it's so philosophical and stuff like that.
Right.
Just because I don't.
It's an entertaining movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's our show. Anything
nice,
else?
Man. Yeah, good job.
I'm still recording, but
Oh, yeah.
that's our show. Any so what on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate the Matrix movies? Or well, from
the first one definitely is going to be a lot higher for
like
me.
89.
Literally, I think it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's up there for sure. The original Matrix. So that's going to be in the 9 range.
Right.
Whereas the series, definitely. I
Did
mean,
it go? Did reload?
It would be closer to a 7.5 or so for me.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the Matrix for me, don't look at the fourth one at all. Matrix Trilogy, as we call it, as we call the trilogy. I really feel like the first one just is sort of it's one of those films where I feel like it's a cult classic. I mean, visually, and even if you didn't get the storyline or because for me it was one of those movies where it's I watch it for the visuals.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, again, comparatively to the day, it just blew everything else out of the water.
And what do you think? What do you think of the in Matrix Resurrection? Not Resurrection. Revolutions. What do you think of the whole baby face? Of all the squibs. Remember the squids? And he's like, I know Agent Smith has been kind of taken over, right before he does the fight.
Yeah.
What do you think of the whole when he's like, you've got one more chance before you fight. What's his name? Or Agent Smith.
Are you talking about all the other Agent Smiths lined up?
Yeah. No, okay, hold on. No. The final battle in the rain. At 3.
Yeah, do you not read? There's a ton of Agent Smith. He
No. When he talks to the baby face, he talks to he goes to the machine world.
Oh yeah, the metal, the little thing that's floating.
Yeah, and he's like, you got that was.
It's that is a wild sequence where he's out in the
and he's blind. Because, I kind of...
called the computer world, or what?
Zion. Is it Zion?
He's outside of Zion, even there.
Yeah, the world of the real...
The machine world.
The machine world, yeah.
Yeah.
But, because, I really like that... Because I like that scene. I mean, because I think it worked pretty well where, it had a... if you look at Matrix Reloaded... that cliffhanger where they find Agent Smith as a human. They said, we remember at the end, he's like, we found the body of Agent Smith. And he's like, oh.
Right.
I
mean, definitely in the third one at that point, that scene you're talking about, that definitely gives off some kind of religious, philosophical vibes for sure.
Yeah.
Him kind of being God of that, that computer program, essentially.
Yeah. But
it's crazy, but what would you rate the Matrix?
The first one,
or the trilogy in general?
Trilogy in general, give it an 8.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's still up there for me too. Yeah,
I think if you would have asked me in 2003 or 2005, I would have given it's 10, it's the greatest. But for me now, I'm just and then after I saw the fourth one, where I was a little bit more, I was a little bit more hoping that they would, feel there'd be a lot more action. I was like, okay, maybe, but I've always, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I just kind of think of, I feel like like I said, I think the first one is just always gonna, it kind of was the first one was on such a high pedestal, and it just couldn't really, the second,
the next two couldn't come close.
Right,
for sure.
right.
Yeah, I mean they tried, and they weren't bad at all.
Right. But, I mean they weren't, and I think Keanu did a really Keanu, Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss did a really good job. I liked how I just feel like and then we've got to also mention so here's another bad boy. Speaking of bad boys, remember the oh god, what is his name? Remember the villain in Matrix 1? Not Agent Smith, but the one that at the end of Cypher. So Cypher, who is the captain in the Bad Boys series.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty, when I watched The Matrix the first time, that was a really good twist. I think
that was a pretty they kind of hinted at it, and it wasn't as explosive as the plot twist in Fight Club.
Right.
Yeah. But it was still a pretty big one. I mean, you're like, shit.
Well, when you realize he's having dinner, like that scene where he's cutting up the meat and saying, I look at this piece of meat, my mind says it's meat, my taste buds, I will eat this meat, my taste buds will tell my mind that it's meat, but I realize that it's just another computer program. And then he's like, I want you to, and then Agent Smith is like, I want you to get the mainframe of the Zion starship or something. And he's like, I told you I don't know it, but I know who does. And then I liked, I like that whole, the whole scene where they catch Morpheus and they put him in the thing, and just the whole tower scene.
Oh yeah, where he they save Morpheus.
Morpheus and the whole before the whole visuals, but where he's guy says, "Do you have any guns on you?" And he takes out his thing and he's got all these guns. He says, "Oh shit!" That's an iconic scene. And that's the scene at the beginning where they have she's typing on the computer and she does and she's like, "Don't move," and she's got her hands up like this, and she's like, just step away, and then she turns around and does that. It's now like a cinematic, moment where they just show the kick that's just now, that was something. And did that blow your mind as well?
Oh, there's so many moments. There's so many moments now that you're saying this, when Cypher's unplugging everyone and he's going through them, and then I forget the character's name.
Mouse.
She's not like this.
Not like this. Not like this.
And then boom. Yeah, there's so many and again it's a classic film.
Yeah.
There's a lot of classic moments in the original one, and then after that, the second and third one don't really have moments like that.
Well, the highway chase is pretty cool.
Yes, that's true. But again, there's not just as many, which kind of adds up to not comparing to the first one. But
and then there's the Alice.
I still enjoyed.
And then the first one, it had it had a lot of Alice in Wonderland.
The White Rabbit.
The White Rabbit, and she's like, follow the White Rabbit, and I loved how they actually parodied. I saw Scary Movie 3, and they parodied Morpheus, where they had Queen Latifah play the what is it called, the Oracle, and she's like going, I know that you were going to drop that vase. She's like, what vase? And she moves the vase and she catches the vase and goes, no, that vase. And the vase falls behind her. And then she's doing this whole kind of the spiel. And then you see Eddie Griffin. Him from Undercover Brother, and he was in a couple other films. Yeah. So he comes in. And he's dressed up as Morpheus, and he goes, games, he's going, what? She comes in, sits down, and turns on the TV and says, the game's on, baby. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And then she said, or "What are you doing?" He's like, "The game's on, baby. The Lakers." And then she says, "The Lakers will win by 10." And then he turns off the TV and goes, "You just ruined it for me. Thanks a lot." So, but like that's the other thing. Like that's that came out in 2003, which I think is the same year as I think it came out in October, which was right around the same time as Resurrection or Revolution. No,
Reloaded.
Revolutions, the third one, Matrix 3.
Oh,
Because Matrix Reloaded came out in May, and then Matrix Reload or Revolutions came out in November. It was the year, as according to Mr. Sunday Movie, he says it was the year of the Matrix.
You could definitely say that.
Yeah. Sure. So, all right. I guess that's our talk on the Matrix. I guess next episode we'll find something else.
I may or may not be there for the next one.
Well, I think Jay and I are coming back for some Cobra Kai, and I guess we'll probably do Fight Club maybe next time. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Who knows?
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Peace.